Today our topic is investigation in ecology. The terms used in this investigation process are variables, dependence variables, independent variables, control, and sampling. Variable in an investigation. The things that are changing in an experiment are called as variables. A variable is any factor, trait, or condition that can exist in different amounts or types. An experiment usually has three kinds of variables: independent, dependent, and controlled. Independent variables. As its name indicates, that independent means which are not dependent upon any other factor. An independent variable is defined as the variable that is changed or controlled in a scientific experiment. It represents the cause or reason for an outcome. Independent variables are the variables that the experimenter changes to test their dependent variables. A change in the independent variable directly causes a change in the dependent variable. The effect on the dependent variable is measured and recorded. What are dependent variables? The dependent variables are the things that the scientist focuses his or her observation on to see how they respond to the changes made to the independent variable. So dependent variables are those variables which depends upon other factors, other things in an experiment. When an experimenter wants to perform an experiment, there are some factors or there are some variables which depend upon some other variables. Without those variables, those factors, dependent variables are nothing, or they are not of any use. Some examples are here. Like for example, a scientist is testing the effect of light and dark on the behavior of moth by turning a light on and off. So the independent variable is the amount of light, and the moth's reaction is the dependent variable. So light here is an independent variable which is not dependent upon any other factor, but the reaction of moth, it depends upon the light intensity. Like if the light intensity is high, what will be the reaction of the moth, and if the light intensity is low, what will be the moth reactions. So the reaction of moth is dependent, while the amount of light is independent. In a study to determine the effect of temperature on plant pigmentation, pigmentation means the colors which the plant gave us. The independent variable causes is which are the causes is the temperature, while the amount of pigment or color is the dependent variable. So independent temperature is the environmental factor or environmental characteristics, while the pigmentation, the color which the plant gave us, are dependent. Why they are dependent? Because they are dependent upon the temperature and the light. So they are dependent variables. Graphing a variable. When graphing data for an experiment, the independent variable is plotted on the x-axis, while the dependent variable is recorded on the y-axis. An easy way to keep the two variables straight is to use the acronym DRY mix, which stands for dependent variables that respond to change goes on the y-axis, and the manipulated or independent variable goes on the x-axis. This acronym is so easy for you people to remember while graphing a variable. Control group. A group used as a standard of comparison in a controlled experiment. The control group is defined as the group in an experiment or study that does not receive treatment by the researcher and is then used as a benchmark to measure how the other tested subjects do. So control group may be a help, for example, when we test something or when we are going to perform an experiment on living organisms like animals, we have some healthy animals like healthy humans, healthy rats, healthy horses. So those healthy organism is a control group, while the diseased person or are the disease which we are going to treat or on which we are going to perform the experiment, those peoples on which we are performing experiments are the experimental group. So there are two groups, one is the control group and the other one is experimental group. The one who is going to be treated is experimental group, and the one who is not treated by the experimenter is a control group. Sampling the data. Sampling is a process used in statistical analysis in which a predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population. The methodology used to sample from a larger population depends on the types of analysis being performed. Thank you. If you have any question, ask me.